When Daniel asked me to look after his mother while he was away for a work assignment, I never imagined how deeply it would change my life. His mother, Evelyn, had recently been through surgery, and he was worried about leaving her alone. He trusted me, as his closest friend, to step in and be there during his absence. At first, I saw it only as an act of kindness, a way to help someone who had been like family to me. But what began as a duty soon transformed into something unexpected, something that blurred the lines between care, trust, and forbidden desire. The first evening I spent at Evelyn's home, the house felt unusually quiet. She greeted me warmly, her gentle smile hiding a subtle loneliness I hadn't noticed before. She was elegant in a way that time could not diminish. Her hair streaked with silver, her voice soft yet full of strength. She carried herself with dignity, but behind her composure, I sensed years of solitude, a longing for companionship. Daniel often spoke about how his mother had devoted herself entirely to family, never thinking much of her own happiness after his father passed away. At dinner, we shared a meal together. She insisted on cooking, even though I offered to handle it. We sat across from one another, the dim kitchen light casting shadows that made the moment feel strangely intimate. Our conversation flowed easily, about books, about life, about memories. The more she spoke, the more I realized how fascinating she was. She wasn't just Daniel's mother. She was a woman with depth, stories, and dreams she had tucked away. The nights I stayed over to make sure she was comfortable, I would sometimes find her sitting by the window, lost in thought. One evening, I joined her there. The moonlight spilled across her face, highlighting her delicate features, and when she looked at me, there was a softness in her eyes I couldn't ignore. We talked about loneliness, hers, mine, the kind that creeps in even when people are around. That conversation lingered in my chest long after she retired for the night. Days turned into weeks, and our bond deepened. I noticed how she started waiting for me in the evenings, how her eyes lit up when I walked through the door. I couldn't deny that I looked forward to seeing her too. There was a comfort in her presence, but also something dangerous, a pull I struggled to resist. One rainy night, everything shifted. Evelyn had been reading in the living room, and I sat beside her as the storm raged outside. The sound of rain filled the silence between us, but the air was thick with unspoken words. She handed me the book she was reading and asked me to read aloud. My voice carried through the dimly lit room, and I noticed how intently she watched me, her lips parted slightly, her breathing slower than usual. When I finished, she whispered, "You have such a soothing voice. It makes me feel less alone." Something in me broke at that moment. I placed the book aside, and before I could think of the consequences, my hand brushed against hers. She didn't pull away. Instead, she turned her palm upward, intertwining her fingers with mine. The warmth of her touch sent shivers through me. We sat like that, hands bound together, both aware of the invisible line we had just crossed. From then on, our interactions carried a new intensity. Small touches lingered longer. Glances held more meaning. The walls of trust Daniel had built around us were slowly being tested, and yet neither of us wanted to stop. It was as if fate had led us into this forbidden closeness, daring us to embrace it. One night, as I prepared to leave, Evelyn stopped me at the door. Her voice trembled as she said, "You don't have to go." "Not tonight." My heart pounded in my chest. I knew what she meant, and I knew what it would mean if I stayed. But I couldn't resist. I stepped closer, and for the first time I kissed her. It wasn't a hurried kiss, but a slow, trembling confession of all the feelings we had buried. Her hands rested on my shoulders as mine held her waist, pulling her into me. The world outside ceased to exist. That night, we shared not just passion but a raw, unspoken truth that we both craved something more than companionship. We craved each other. What followed was a season of secret moments. Cooking together while brushing against each other intentionally, stolen kisses in the hallway, long conversations late into the night where words turned into caresses. She showed me parts of herself no one else had seen, her vulnerabilities, her fears, her desires. And I offered her the same. But with every moment of closeness came the shadow of guilt. Daniel trusted me. I was betraying not only his trust, but also the boundaries of what was considered right. Evelyn felt it too. There were mornings she would look at me with tears in her eyes and whisper, "This can't go on. It isn't fair to him." And yet, Each time we tried to pull back, the pull between us only grew stronger. I often found myself lying awake at night, thinking about the impossible situation we had created. I loved Evelyn, not just as Daniel's mother, but as the woman she truly was. She had awakened something in me that I didn't know existed, a tenderness mixed with passion, a love that felt both beautiful and wrong. One afternoon, as the sun filtered through the curtains, Evelyn and I sat together in silence. She reached for my hand and said softly, "This stays between us. No one can ever know. Not Daniel, not anyone." I nodded, though a part of me longed to shout our truth to the world. But I respected her wishes, knowing the weight of what we carried. When Daniel finally returned, Evelyn and I put on the mask of normalcy. We acted as though nothing had changed, as though we hadn't shared the most intimate parts of ourselves. But behind every polite smile, every casual conversation, there was an unspoken bond that could never be erased. Years have passed since then, yet the memory remains etched in me. Sometimes I wonder if what we shared was love or simply a moment of weakness. But deep down, I know it was real. It was forbidden, yes, but it was also tender, honest, and unforgettable. Evelyn and I may never speak of it again, but in those secret nights, we discovered something that belonged only to us. And so, the truth remains hidden. To the world, I was just the friend who watched over his mother. But between Evelyn and me, there was something deeper, something that would live in the quiet corners of our hearts forever. It was a story of trust, of kindness, a forbidden desire that turned into love. A story that, no matter how much time passes, still whispers in my soul, "This stays between us."